Welcome back to my channel. Today's discussion will be about Series 17, which is a series that's another themed, this time on urban myths. So let's get into Series 17. I discussed Series 17, well, two of the dolls from Series 17 were discussed in a video I made on the worst Living Dead dolls. Series 17 was a series I did not have in my collection, and I did not think I was going to have in my collection. And once again, I changed my mind, as I do many times when it comes to Living Dead dolls. And I thought it was kind of silly that I have series 1 through 35 and then skip 17. And, I made room for them, and now I have them. And doing my research, I find the dolls are a lot more interesting than I gave them credit for. Some more than others, but still, worth discussing. Now, this series was released in the spring of 2009, and none of the dolls have an actual death date because they're based on an urban myth. Now, this is the first time since Series 5 that the death certificates are different. So the death certificates for this series, they're more like the written stories of the legends. So the way I'm going to discuss the dolls is some of the urban myths really don't have much to elaborate. So that's how I'm going to discuss the dolls. So from the least that I have to say to the most in terms of the doll and their legend. And so the first doll I'm going to start with is Spider Bite. Yes, she was on that list. And the reason why Spider Bite I felt was not really a great doll is because her concept was already done before with Arachne from Series 10, who's one of my favorites from that series, who also is a spider-themed doll. Another thing about Spider Bite, I just think her overall design seems very plain. I don't like her hair. Her hair is atrocious. It's asymmetrical, and I don't have a problem that it's short. It's just the way it's cut. It's very haphazard. Now, Spider Bite's urban legend is that a woman gets bit, she doesn't know she's bit by a spider, and she has a pimple, or what she thinks it's a pimple, and it grows larger and larger, and then when she takes a bath, it actually makes the bite burst, and all these spiders come out of her face. So that is the legend of the Spider Bite. And here's her death certificate. If you want to pause to read the story. And the chipboards are also different. They correspond with the legend as well. And like I said, she's an okay designed doll. Her prototype photo, which you can find on Mezco, originally she didn't have the spider web detail on her sleeves, which I think is a nice touch to, again, an overall plain doll. I believe it's a separate piece. No, it's attached to the dress, as far as I can see. She has these netted tights. She has these boots, and she actually stands really nice on her own. And she has like this velvet collar around her neck. Here's an up close of her face. I mean, it's kind of gnarly, but at the same time, when you have Arachne, she's just a much better doll. And Living Dead Dolls almost did another spider-themed doll for the Scary Tales, with Miss Muffet. So, I just felt like it already was done to death, no pun intended, with the spider theme. Now, she doesn't go for much. She goes for about around $50 to $60. I paid $52 for her, opened. And that's it for Spider Bite. The next urban legend will be the Unwilling Donor. Now, she is one of the two popular dolls of this series. Usually I leave the MVD for the last of the series, but her urban legend is more of it's more of a fear that people had in terms of organ donating, and there is a real life illegal organ trade. And so here's her story. I'm going to pause to read it. And she has an adorable face and definitely thinking about her life choices. And honestly, I think she's a little bit overrated. I can't believe she costs so much money. Of the $5, I paid the most for her. And I bought her for $105, and she can go anywhere from $100 to $150. And she comes with this robe, and she has, let's see if I can open it. Okay. So the knot to her robe is kind of pinned down with a rubber band, so I'm just going to leave it. So she comes in this robe that has the terry cloth material that feels like an actual robe, and it's soaked with blood. And what's neat about the blood, the area where she's bleeding, she actually has a matching scar to go with it, right there, which is a really cool detail. You see that there's blood on her body. And she comes with an accessory. She's one of 2 dolls in this series that comes with an accessory. She actually comes with her organ. Here's her missing kidney. Now, I keep it in her pocket. I feel like that's the safest place to keep it. But, yep, that's her kidney. So I put it in her pocket. She has, her hair is, it feels like it's gelled for some reason. I mean, I don't know if that's the condition she was originally. I did buy her opened from another collector, and it's black and blue. She's a really, really nice hair color. I like it. It kind of reminds me of Morgana a little bit from series 13. And, she has those eyes that look up, very similar to Rain. And that's about it. She's pretty simple, not much to her. And that's really all I have to say about the Unwilling Donor. Okay, next up is the Vanishing Hitchhiker. Now, this is another doll I wasn't fond of at first because of her face. It looks like an incomplete doll with her face. Like, it's the fact that it's not fully colored in. Like, I don't know. It just seems like someone had crayons and just scribbled on her face. So that was one of the big things I didn't like about her. I do love her hair. Her hair is really cute. I love the color. It's a nice color. She comes with this Letterman jacket. Has a little sulfur symbol. It's Velcro. And then underneath she has this dress, which is purposely stained, because her legend is that she's a a girl that died years ago, and a good Samaritan picks her up on the side of the road, and he offers her a ride home. And then when he takes her home, he drops her off, and then coming back, he realizes, well, one of the versions of the story is that she left her jacket behind. And in this particular story, which on her death certificate, now this one has the most text than the other dolls. So in this version, the Good Samaritan gives her his jacket because she didn't have one and she was cold. And he realized he forgot to get it back from her and went back to her house. And her mom told him that she died years ago in a car accident. And in the scroll, her death certificate, he goes to her cemetery and actually sees his jacket on the tombstone. A little bit more elaborate than the original urban myth. I mean, it's told. It's one of those that changes in terms of the circumstances, but the key facts always stay the same. That it was a girl who died years ago, and what I like about her is that she has this eerie glow-in-the-dark effect. I'll show you in a moment. I don't know if you can see it, but now her eyes are bright green. And I think it's such a cool effect. So it warmed me up to her. I still don't think she's a great doll, but she's definitely better than my first impressions of her. And like I said, she has this cute little dress. And again, she has these purpose stains all over her dress. Okay. And the buttons is just a faux. It's just for decorative purposes, but they're not real buttons. And she doesn't have pockets. She is the only living dead doll that has this little gesture, her little thumb out. They never reused that hand mold. And she doesn't come with feet. And she's also stained. Again, she crawled out of her grave, so her legs are all stained with dirt. And again, she's a cool doll, and she's also not terribly expensive. I paid $60 for her open, and she goes for like $50 to $60. And that's all I have to say for The Vanishing Hitchhiker. Now, the doll I didn't think I was going to have a lot to say about is the Hook. So the Hook, now his story is one I've heard since I was a teenager, and there's many versions of his story as well. So let me show you his story. In this version of the legend, a couple is on a date, and then they hear on the radio that there was this mental patient that breaks out of the asylum, and he's on a killing spree. They hear something in the woods. They break out of the car, and then I guess they come back to the car and they find that his hook is attached to the car. Now, the story I've heard as a teenager is there was a girl driving by herself, and there was high beams in her rearview mirror. Someone was driving what she thought was threatening, and so she was trying to dodge the car behind her, and it turns out the driver of the car behind her was trying to warn her that someone was hanging on her door, on her car, on the trunk of the car. And then when she got home or stopped at a gas station to get help, she saw that there was a hooked hand on her trunk. And that's what she was being warned about. Now, what's interesting about the Hook is that he has underneath his coat a little bit of history underneath. So on the back of his jumpsuit, he has Ewing Asylum. Now, Ewing is an actual place in New Jersey, which is where the creators are from. And in Ewing, New Jersey, which was part of Trenton, I looked up the asylum. So it wasn't called Ewing Asylum, but it was called, it was related to the Trenton Psychiatric Hospital today, but it was known as the Ewing Asylum or the New Jersey State Lunatic Asylum. And it has a very dark and disturbing history. I highly suggest you check it out. For some reason, he has a humpback. Not sure why he has a humpback where the Ewing Asylum is. It's attached to the jumpsuit, and he has this long coat that has snaps on it, and he has the hooked hand. Now, again, I had him on my worst list because there is a hooked hand doll already done better by the name of Angus Little Rot. So they do reuse the hooked hand. There you go. And, his face is interesting. He has interesting screening, but nothing remarkable. And also in my research of his legend, I came across that there may be a true story. And this one involved a man by the name of Andre Rand, who, he did horrible things and involved children between the 70s and 80s. And this took place in Staten Island. And it was sensationalized, and it was known as the Cropsey legend. And he had either hook or he was an axe-wielding maniac. So the Hook story is very varied and many takes on it. And again, he's okay, but like I said, a Hook doll was done way better with Angus Little Rot. So he does have these boots that look muddy, like he came from the rain, and up to his ankle. And like I said, he has this jumpsuit that he's hiding underneath his coat. Now, he's not very popular. I didn't pay much for him. I got him maybe a year ago, and I paid only $30 for him sealed. And he goes for about $30 to $40. And, he's not that remarkable of a doll, but he does have an interesting backstory, which again was more than I thought, especially when Josh, aka Doggy Pants, talked about this series years ago. And, especially with the Ewing Asylum, I really was curious about that detail. And, you go down a rabbit hole with with the information you come across. So I thought that was fascinating. So he has a lot more going on backstory wise than appearance. Oh, and speaking of his appearance, his hair is gelled to the max. So it's very crunchy. And I'm not sure why they chose this green color. It's just really bizarre. Okay? And that's all I have to say about the Hook. Now, last but certainly not least is Bloody Mary. Now, Bloody Mary is another legend I grew up hearing about, and even I was very scared to try that legend, which is you say her name either 3 or 5 times while looking at the mirror, and supposedly you'll see her staring right back at you in the reflection. So here's her story. Basically, this one describes her ritual. And she's the only other doll that comes with an accessory. So she comes with, fitting enough, this mirror. And, it's a hard plastic. It's really cool. It fits nicely in her cupped hand. And she's bloodied all over. Now, this is another doll that I thought I was never going to have because she's really intense. And I was very resistant in getting these really intense dolls, and she's by far, I think, the most scariest in the face in comparison to all the dolls that I have here, with her extreme scarring on her face. She's screaming, she looks crazy, and even the hair feels different for an LDD. The texture of her hair definitely feels purposefully aged, if that makes sense. If you ever have a doll with old hair, like, it's really hard to describe, but it just feels like an old doll. So now, Bloody Mary is a composite of a couple of women, a couple of legends all smushed together. I remember the one I should say grow up, but when I went to high school, I learned of the Bloody Mary legend that was based on Queen Mary of Scots, or Mary Tudor, and she beheaded many Protestant citizens in England, trying to get the Catholic Church to be the main religion in England. And then Countess Bathory is brought up as another possible person that the legend is based on, which, if you remember from Series 15, she bathed in the blood of virgins. So that was another candidate for that legend. And then there's another one that I've never heard of, and her name was Mary Worth, and she was a local witch from the Midwest who was burned at the stake, and she allegedly cursed the town, promising to haunt anyone who called her name. So the image that stares back at you sometimes is described as a witch or old woman looking back at you. And then, now this is new to me. When I was doing my research, they said that sometimes it will be a woman with a baby, because the real Queen Mary of Tudor, she had a lot of miscarriages or something like that from my research. But in the case, of all the urban legends, she is the most famous one. And if you remember the movie Candyman, that was another take on the Bloody Mary legend as well. Now, she has this dress that also is all covered with blood. And it actually goes all around. Like, she's even bloodier than Bathory, whose dress only had blood in the front. And she's another one that goes for a lot of money, around the same range as the Unwilling Donor, about $100 to $150. I got her brand new for $72 in my this local toy shop, and they had her for the longest, and they had like this Black Friday sale, and that's when I got her. I was like, why not? And that's what actually started the collection of Series 17. And I'm glad she started. And like I said, I have many screaming dolls, but she still is the most intense. And let's just say I'm glad I don't have to look at her every day. She's in my room. And that is Bloody Mary. One more thing about Bloody Mary. So to get her mirror back in her hand, you have to put it through here. For some reason, she can't hold it that way. And I also forgot to mention, she also has blood on her boots as well. Like, she's bloody. And that is it. That is all for Bloody Mary. Okay, and it fell. Don't mind that. Okay. And that's all I have to say about Series 17. One thing to note, now, since Series 5, I haven't been able to find production runs for the series dolls beyond Series 5. And so I came across the production run for Series 17. I just happened to see an eBay listing. And the seller had the complete set. He had the shipper box, and he or she was selling all 5 dolls on this eBay listing. And according to that box, this seller had like 300 out of 1,700. So it seems like Series 17 only had 1,700 sets made. So it actually makes them a lot more rare in comparison to, say, Series 5. And usually that is the best source of information is on that shipper box. So I believe that is how many were made, which it makes you wonder when did they shorten how many dolls they made, and when did that start, which series? Because it seems like Living Dead Dolls has been successful up to this point, so who knows? And I wish I could find more information about it, but it's been really hard to get that type of information. Anywho, I hope you enjoyed Series 17. I have to admit, they have won me over. I still don't think they're a great series, mainly because 3 of the 5 dolls, they have had the same theme. Like even Bloody Mary, you know, there was another girl with a mirror screaming, and that was Evangeline. Granted, she is done to the 10th degree versus Evangeline. Evangeline still looked adorable. And again, I think Spider Bite and the Hook were very uninspiring. And the Unwilling Donor, she doesn't have much to her. So out of 5 sulfur symbols, I give this series a 3 out of 5 sulfur symbols. They still are a good themed set, but I just think, I don't know. Honestly, instead of the Hook, I don't understand why the guys didn't take the opportunity to explore one of New Jersey's most famous urban legends, the Jersey Devil. Like, to this day, I don't understand why we never got a Jersey Devil from Mezco. It's from New Jersey and is widely known, and they could have done a great doll. Maybe that character wouldn't fit with a series overall, but we could have gotten a presents, like a special presents like we have with Nosferatu, Edgar Allan Poe, and such. I think a Jersey Devil doll would have been so cool to have. My husband actually has a Jersey Devil action figure, and I will talk about that figure later on in my channel. And it's a great figure, and I really can't wait to talk about it in another video down the road. So do your research. And again, they all have death certificates, but they're mostly, like their stories. And Bloody Mary has the mirror, and the Unwilling Donor, make sure, especially if it's open, make sure you do ask about that kidney. Personally speaking, if they don't have that kidney, it's not worth owning. Or at least haggle that price down. And as always, happy hunting.